I'm here in the studio with Mayor-elect Jesse Lineberry to talk with him about his plans as mayor. This will be his first term as mayor of Buena Vista, and his term will last 2 years. Mr. Lineberry, thank you for being here and congratulations.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
What does this win mean to you?
It means everything. I feel like this is a monumental moment in our city's history. I believe that I'm one of the youngest mayors to ever be elected. This is where I grew up. This is where I was born, and Lord willing, Buena Vista is where I'll die one day. So to have a platform to create some type of stability and progress in our city, it's life changing for me and my family.
So your term begins on January 1st. What is the first thing you plan to do in office?
So I want to hit the ground running. And when I say that, I mean that we want to have a plan when we go in there. And I feel like a lot of people have come in with a lot of the same ideas and the same attitude as me, and then they got through that door and they were either overwhelmed or they were told, it can't be done, or we don't have the money. And unfortunately, a lot of times they believed it instead of checking the receipts for themselves. And so the first thing I did, I created a plan of realistic things, common sense things, and then I took that plan to other candidates that were running for city council who I felt were likely to win, and we went over these different things that I'm passionate about, and we talked about things that they were passionate about, and we're going to act on them. And these are things that we're more than capable of getting done. Money we already have that may need to be moved around. But yeah, so the biggest thing is, and I've said it, and you guys have heard me say it, that municipal building down there is the city's household, and we're going to get the city's house in order before we come knocking on the doors of the good men and women of Buena Vista asking to make the budget when the budget ain't budgeted.
So presidents like to announce what they plan in the first 100 days in office. What might that include for you as mayor?
I think one of the first things we need to do is we need to get the wastewater treatment plant in order, and it needs a total revamp. Unfortunately, it would be more appropriate to phase it, to create a phase-in project for it. But we're at the point now where we risk catastrophic failure, and the reality is that the Maury River is a Chesapeake Bay watershed. And we're already looking at millions of dollars of improvements that we're going to be responsible for. I understand that we have some grant money there that's going to knock off a chunk of it, and I'm pleased for that. What worries me is when we talk about why haven't we taken action is because I believe that they're holding out for the possibility of more grant money. That's great, but like I said, if we leak sewer water into the Maury River, we're going to be fined millions on top of we still got to we still have to make those improvements in the wastewater plant. So that's number one. So we do that, then we start coming up with a plan on how to phase and improve the roads. And when I talk about, I'll kind of jump around a little bit, but anything that I have, it starts with a plan and it starts with a strategy, and we make that public. And whether we put timetables on that, and how much of it we want to accomplish, so that way the public sees what we said we were going to do, and then when the time comes, they'll see if we get it done or not. And that's a way to hold us accountable, including myself. So I want to sit down, and I can't sit here right now and pretend like I know everything. I don't, but I will. And when I get in that building down there, when I get in that municipal building, we will sit down, the city manager and other department heads, and we'll find where we're hurting the most, and we'll start being proactive with our spending and not so much reactive, and we'll come up with the plans and strategies to get the things done that are going to benefit the citizens of Buena Vista in the long run.
Yeah, I know transparency has been something that you've talked about a lot in your campaign, and we'll get into that later. Another thing you've mentioned is getting rid of the cigarette tax. That is something that's supposed to be going into effect January 1st of this year. That tax is supposed to help maintain Glen Mare River Park and discourage people from smoking. How would you pay for the park's maintenance if you do away with that cigarette tax?
So anything that's been done can be undone, and that's a reality, and I've seen it. I've seen, important positions that people that thought that they were untouchable in our local government get their bags packed and sent down the road in the past. And so we could, something as simple as going back to the budget and taking a look at where we can help ourselves to make up whatever they believe we're going to make on the cigarette tax. I have no problem doing that. And that starts, though, with meeting with our department heads, and it starts with us ourselves sitting down together and trusting in them, to be honest, and then take the feedback that we get, because the reality is that there is waste in every local government. It's just a point of how hard you have to work to find it. And I'm willing to do that, and I know that the candidates that were elected for city council are willing to do that. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do away with that cigarette tax, and that's to me was a lazy way of creating revenue. And we're going to work hard, and we're going to find ways to create that revenue that doesn't hurt so many good people just because of a habit that they so choose. And let me add to this, because I know you're going to hear a lot of, well, Lexington and Rockbridge does it. And when we've brought this issue up in the past, current members on the council said exactly how I feel. This isn't about Lexington and Rockbridge. This is about Buena Vista. And if that's your only justification for implementing this tax or creating this tax, that's not good enough for me. So that's how I feel about it.
Okay, and in your campaign, you've also talked about, just cutting taxes in general. How do you plan to lower taxes?
We all have the idea of lowering taxes, right? I mean, everybody that's ever come in any forms of government, that's the first they say, we're going to lower taxes. What we can do is and this kind of comes back to being transparent, we can take the tax money that we already have from these people, and we can be more transparent on how we spend that money. And it may not be so much right off the bat lowering the taxes, but we sure as heck aren't going to let them rise on us, right? And then not only are we going to let them not rise the taxes, we're going to be a more open government, and we're going to be more transparent on how we're showing them, hey, this is how we're spending your taxes. And we're going to spend it in ways that are responsible for the taxpayers and at the taxpayers' will. We're going to get out there in the community, and we're going to know how they want us to spend our monies. And you do that by going out and visiting with these people who have these selfless jobs around the city that do a lot of the city's work behind the scenes, and that's school leaders, local religious leaders. They're the ones that are dealing with parents on the daily. They're dealing with their congregations on the daily. They're going to know what's going on in the streets before we do. So we'll get. I'm confident that we'll create great relationships throughout the community, and be able to find ways to spend the money the way that the citizens, the hardworking taxpayers, want to spend it. And like I said, when it comes to the transparency part of it, if they see that we're spending the money in a responsible way or in a way that benefits them, then guess what happens? You instantly bring the morale of the community up, so that when you do spend, it makes sense for one, but people's not so upset about it. But yes, we will for sure find ways we're not raising any taxes. We're done with that. We're going to start finding ways to create revenue within our government.
How would you describe the state of the city's finances?
That's another thing where I got to come at you and say, it's hard to tell. And let me tell you why. I feel like when it comes to our budget, we don't itemize as well as we should. And we talk about, well, Lexington and Rockbridge does this and that, right? So if you take a look at Lexington's budget, you'll see that theirs is hundreds of pages long compared to ours that's not half that. Our budget, if you sit down and try to look at our budget, you see where they throw money into a department, but then you don't see really how it's dispersed in that department. And that's what I'm talking about, finding that waste. So That's something to think about.
So would you say that you're frustrated with this, what it sounds like to you, a feeling of comparing often Rockbridge and Lexington to Buena Vista?
Not so much. I think that Lexington and Rockbridge have some great things going for them, and I think we should follow suit in some of those things. But it's silly to follow suit with them in some of the negative ways, right? So if I'm going to follow Rockbridge and Lexington in anything, it's going to be things that are more positive affecting the community, not so much pressing and stretching the community.
How can the city budget withstand any kind of tax cuts since it's only recently recovered from the golf course finance problems?
So the golf course hurt us, and it hurt us for a long time. As far as I understand, we were supplementing up to $100,000 a year to keep the golf course running for many years. And so we don't have that monkey on our back no more. So I asked, what are we doing with that $100,000 that we were supplementing? Okay, and we were surviving with doing that, and not that many businesses in downtown and new businesses that have came recently. So what are we doing with that revenue? That's what makes me ponder. Just because we make more money, the city makes more money, doesn't mean we should find a way to spend it irresponsibly or funnel it in special interest or whatever into a different part of the local government, right? At some point, if you're making more money, then as long as you've taken care of your priorities, such as the water treatment plant, your schools, the infrastructure, roads, things we should have been doing all along, then that relief should then reflect on the citizens of Buena Vista. They should see some relief themselves, and it hasn't been like that yet. I've seen success in the city, but not success as a citizen, and so there's a clear difference.
I want to pivot a little bit to talk about city council. What do you think about the city council race results?
I'm pleased with them. I really am. And I think that we had it's unfortunate when you have such a large group of candidates that I think would do wonderful, and you can only pick 3. So it was almost a situation where, it was a situation where we were going to be fine either way. I know I heavily endorsed, Stephanie Branch and Amy Gillum, and they both won, and I'm pleased with that. But as far as whoever that next candidate was going to be, we couldn't go wrong because I was willing to work with any of them. And with most of them, we had already been, meeting and talking about it and sharing ideas, things passionate that we were passionate about, things that we believed needed to be done, and things that we could do immediately, and things that would take time. And that's what we're going to do these next however many weeks till January 1. We're going to rest up, and then we're going to hit the ground running like I told you.
You've said that you would like to start streaming city council meetings online to increase transparency in city government. How do you plan to do that and fund that?
Oh, if I have to buy the equipment myself, we'll do it. That's such a wonderful thing. People deserve to see whose interest, where the city officials in the city's business interests are, and it's such an easy thing to do. And so many localities do it. And I tell you this, it's not as hard as it used to be, right? Technology is a lot better now than it was 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, right? You could use a phone these days, and with the PA system, your sound's gonna come in pretty daggone clear. And so it's gonna be a work in progress, but we're gonna do it. That's the big thing. We're gonna get started. And things like that are gonna bring the morale up, like I told you. But yes, that will be done. And that's one of those things when I told you, hey, here's some things we can do, and that doesn't even cost us any money because I'll buy the equipment if that's what it takes, if it's that big of a deal. But people deserve to come home at night, and if they can't make the meeting and they want to watch 15 minutes of it tonight and 15 minutes of it tomorrow night, and by, within the 48 hours, 72 hours, they know what the city's business was. Because you see too many times in Buena Vista, the first you hear about something, especially something important, is right there in the News Gazette or some other platform.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to citizens of Buena Vista?
To believe, to understand that I know that it's going to be hard, right? And because that has ever been positive in anybody's life, whether it be their career or their health, those type of things take work. And I know it's going to be hard, and I know that I can't do it by myself. But the goal is to put the right people around us. And that if we bring something to the table that makes sense, that we surely can do, that's going to not do the things that are going to benefit taxpayers, if somebody stands in our way, then with the changes we make as far as the transparency and the open government that we're going to create, they'll be able to see for themselves who's hurting this city. And then guess what? Next election, they can vote them out and put somebody else that's motivated and passionate and like-minded, because it's what's needed. And I know that I can work with anyone, and I think diversity is great. I think we all shouldn't think the same, but we should all be passionate, and we should all be ready to go to work for what we want, right? And that's what we're going to do. And you've seen for far too long, it seems like we've been in some kind of airplane mode. We go in, we do the Pledge of Allegiance, we handle city business in 47 minutes, we're out of there. It's not going to be like that. I've already talked to my family about it. If we're not there 2 hours, we ain't done nothing, okay? And we're in a state now to where I feel like you said, there's some things that we want to take away, and we're going to have to make up for that. And there's some ways that those type of things we may have to tackle several different ways, and we may have to go about it several different ways. But we're going to take the time, and we're going to take the effort and the sacrifices, and we're going to do it.
Well, thank you again for being here today, Mr. Lineberry. With the Rockbridge Report, I'm Isabella Custard.
Thank you.